Welcome to Soul Elevation, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I was so excited and honored to talk to spirit talker Shawn Leonard in this episode. You're in for such a treat as we explore spirit guides, indigenous teachings, and Shawn shares amazing stories of hearing and recording his guides' voices, how they've appeared to him physically, and other really expansive stories. I've really gotten so much from Shawn's book, Spirit Talker. I have it here, Spirit Talker, and his Oracle deck. And I highly encourage you to engage with those works. Shawn Leonard is a heart-centered Indigenous Mi'kmaq spirit talker and psychic medium with over 25 years of experience bridging the physical and spirit worlds. A proud member of the Millbrook First Nation in Nova Scotia, Shawn takes an authentic approach to spirit communication through live events, media appearances, workshops, and his Spirit Talker Tribe online course. At 16, after losing his father, Shawn received a profound message from Spirit that set him on his life's path. Since then, he's dedicated himself to helping people worldwide connect with departed loved ones, receiving healing messages, and gain deeper insights into their journeys. He's the star and host of the TV show Spirit Talker, author of Spirit Talker, and Wisdom of the Elders Oracle card deck. And we'll dive in just a moment, but first I'm so excited to share about my book, Your Authentic Awakening, a guide to everyday spiritual living, which is available now. This book is designed to help you reach new heights of spiritual awakening. It's full of spiritual guidance, practical tools, and captivating personal stories, all working together to expand your consciousness and open your heart. Find out more on karagoodwin.com, including how to get your own signed copy. And now enjoy this episode. Well, thank you so much for being here, Shawn. I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me on, Kara, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I hear you're from Indiana. Never
Yes.
been down that way, and maybe one day I'll get a chance to go down to your neck of the woods down there. But as of right now, I don't have any plans of yet. I think I'm going to New York in August to a conference down there. But yeah, maybe I'll get there someday.
Yeah, and you're in Canada, right?
I'm in Canada. I'm in the eastern part of Canada, called Nova Scotia, which is the farthest east you can go on the mainland. And yeah, just a little bit north of Maine and a little bit further east.
Okay. Well, Canada's just beautiful. And you guys, is it pretty cold up there now?
Actually, it's still cold, but it's not
Okay.
like freezing cold. Like every now and then, the ice starts to melt and the snow is pretty much gone.
Uh-huh.
And so I love this, when it starts to become spring again.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the winter stuff, no.
No, and we've had a really long, hard winter here. So I don't, and we're further south, of course, than you are, but I'm really looking forward to spring. We've got little whispers of it already. So, but it's
That's
been a
right.
long one.
That's right. Yeah, I'm traveling on tour soon, so I'm hoping that it warms up everywhere I'm going.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love your book, Spirit Talker. So I have it here. If you're on the video, you can see this beautiful book here. And it talks about your psychic experiences and your kind of spiritual awakening and so forth, which is profound and fascinating. Tell us a little bit how you came to be Spirit Talker and how this gift has shown itself to you over time.
Sure. Well, I'm a Mi'kmaq Indigenous person from Canada, Eastern Canada, the Mi'kmaq people, the Mi'kmaq Nation here. And, we do have people medicine people within we could call it our tribe or my territory, etc. But, nothing into the degree of how I kind of practice the work that I do today in the sense that I do. Other than having the book, Spirit Talker, the book, I have an Oracle card deck with Hay House. And
Which
within
I have
Canada,
also and love.
yes, that's awesome. And then I also have a TV show in Canada called Spirit Talker as well, and it's on a TV network called APTN. But I think there's the first season, potentially maybe the second season. You could find it on another app called Fossum, which is available down in the US. So if you check out Fossum, look for Spirit Talker, you might find me on there. But how did I come upon this journey? I guess I think we all have a purpose. And the reason why I wrote the book is, it's talking, a lot about, my journey, but it's a journey of self-discovery. And I think other people resonate with it because, we've all been on a journey through life and what we've experienced. And I like to say that everything that we experience through life is teaching us something. And, we can say it's been a slow awakening, awakening through life of who we truly are. I mean, it's not that it's a discovery of who I am in culture in relation to as an Indigenous person, but it's also a story of a relation to connection to the spirit world and, discovering that, that true sense of self, I guess, that we all are kind of like looking for within ourselves is that connection to spirit, because once we see ourselves as being spirit, having a human experience, and then we start to kind of understand how do we interact, how do we communicate, how does that communicate with us, and how, does it guide us through life, etc. And I've had these kind of like, we'll say, awakening stories of things that have happened to me that, and I know so many people write me and tell me and give me messages saying, you know what, I've had a similar experience, this means so much to me because I wasn't quite sure about this, but now I understand it more fully. So everybody's had similar experiences to these, I believe. And so I think there's like when they hear my story, there's a story within themselves that is like, oh my God, yes, or aha, and I love that resonates with people in that way because I think, a lot of people have beliefs about themselves, and it could be limiting beliefs about thinking, hey, this is not for me. I can't connect, or, I have to go see a psychic medium or a spirit talker or somebody that does this line of work that I'm not directly connected myself. And that's what I really try to help people understand through my stories and teachings within the book is that to help them discover who they are, their connection, and how they understand that connection through themselves as well, and how they may serve if they choose, how
Mhm.
psychic abilities really work, and my kind of awakening to that. Because nobody like sat down and gave me a class and said, "Hey, Shawn, this is what it is. This is how it works. This is how psychic abilities manifest through people." It was almost like these things that happened to me were helping me understand what I say, and like a language of sorts. Because and I actually self-published a book through Balboa Press prior to this book called The Language of Spirit. It's no longer for sale because it was for sale for probably about 4 years. And when I put it out in the world, I just wanted to share teachings and stories to help people understand this concept and, help people know who I am in regard to the work that I do. And so anyway, when Hay House, picked me up as an author, they wanted that book, but they wanted it rewritten and reworded and new chapters and new stories and some different teachings, etc. So this is the new manifestation of that as Spirit Talk of the book is that. And I'm really happy. It's been out in the world, I think, probably almost 3 years now, maybe 2.5 years. It just seems like the other freaking day.
Yeah.
And I just finished my second book for AOS too.
Oh,
But
awesome. When will that come out?
oh, I don't know. Probably the fall, I'm thinking.
Oh,
Potentially,
wow.
it's about spirit totem animals.
Oh.
And so I'm really looking forward to everybody having that, the stories in relation to that and helping them understand their own connection to spirit totem animals. And that's a whole other discussion. But
Mhm.
with me awakening, I guess, I say we're all on a journey through life, and there's certain things that happen to all of us to kind of say, hey, there's something, it could be that we feel nudged or guided or protected, and you may attribute that to an angel, you may attribute that to a spiritual guide, it may be both, maybe an ancestor that is giving you a message. And many times, for me later in life, it happened to be that I started to have like, profound connections with people that I didn't know that weren't my family. And that's when I started to kind of really discover like, okay, there's something to this. This isn't just my imagination. This is actually real because I can't know these things and I'm not a mind reader. And as there was certain things that came through to say, hey, Shawn, this is like, this person even doesn't even know this. You're talking to this person and they don't know it. So I can't be reading somebody's mind if they don't have it in their own mind. So it was like really just hitting me over the head with it. And let's say I was a bit stubborn, because I'm human. I'm a male too, so maybe that masculine brain there was a little stubborn at the take. And but I kept wanting to go deeper and understand more and delve more into what I say that divine language. And I like to say that I'm a pretty good translator at this point. But it doesn't mean I'm not I've stopped learning, or I know it all, or that everything is like, is just everything has come to me. It's not, we're no matter where you are in life, it's a progression. And you're going to still be evolving and learning and growing about who you truly are, and that connection and that communication that comes through from spirit always.
Mm, I love that. As you mentioned the show Spirit Talker that you've been on, and I understand that you've been doing this show for years, and that has helped you to get deeper into the Indigenous teachings and different lineages as well through the Indigenous. Can you talk a little bit about
I
that?
can, yeah, yeah. Like, because way back in the day, I never set out in life to be a Hay House author. I never set out in life to have a TV show, or, it's sometimes spirit when you're in alignment with your life and you're going in the direction you're supposed to be, things just align. The right people come, the right circumstances, just everything just kind of like it sort of comes to you through manifestation, I guess. But even though I wasn't even purposefully trying to manifest it,
Mhm.
that the TV show, there's a funny story around this, and it kind of connects to the Hay House thing, because I probably in 2018, so this is a little ways back, but I had the ability and the opportunity to tour with another medium from Hay House named John Holland. And he came up to Canada, and I opened for him. So it was like I was able to, share the stage with them, and we just really connected. He's a great guy. He's from Boston area. And we connected, and he's partly one of the reasons why I've got the publishing deal with Hay House. Not because he went in there, fighting for me or anything like that. It was just that he was walking by an office at Hay House, and somebody says, we should really think about getting some more Indigenous authors. And he backs up and goes, what did you just say? It was just like divinely timed,
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, we were looking for a couple more Indigenous authors for the Hayos family and such like this. And he goes, well, I just happen to know somebody, Shawn Leonard. I toured with him like in 2018. I think he put a book out through Balboa Press, and so they looked me up. And then and I mean, I sold 5,000 copies of my own book. So next, I'm getting a call from Hayos. Now that was years later, but with the TV show, it was funny because it's connected to John. I did an event in Halifax, Nova Scotia with John Holland, and I think there was 600 people there. So between the two of us, we had 600 people at our audience, and we were doing a live presentation of readings and such. And so we finished. He went home, and I heard there was a TV show in Nova Scotia called The Curse of Oak Island.
Ooh.
And I think it's a season 13, for God's sakes. And they've been looking for a treasure forever, and it's connected to the Knights Templar and a whole bunch of stuff. So I knew it was being filmed here, and I had like keen interest in that type of genre of stuff. So I thought, I'm going to give somebody a call. So I had to find out who I had to call, who was like a co-producer or a producer on the show or something, because I just want to go out there and just vibe it out. You know, I don't want to be on TV. I just want to go out there and check it out and see. I've always wanted to go out to this place called Oak Island that has this rich culture and history. So I phoned a friend who said, "Listen, Ed Pyle of Telltale Productions, is one of the co producers with Prometheus from California. You should give him a call. He's local." So I call him up, and I'm like, hey, Ed, you probably don't know who I am, but my name is Shawn Leonard. And he's like, who? I said, Shawn Leonard, because that is so weird. I was just going to call you. I have a piece
Wow.
of paper with your name and phone number on it in front of me, and I'm supposed to call you next.
Oh my
He
gosh.
says, nobody told you to call me? I'm like, no. I said, really, I'm just calling you because I know that you're on Oak Island. I'm looking to go out there. He goes, I had a writer, Donna Gabriel, who works with me sometimes, who went to your event with John Holland, and she was so impressed with you that she wanted me to call you to see if I would be interested in doing a TV show. I'm like, so have you ever put too much thought into that? I'm like, not really, no. I said, that sounds all awesome, but I just really wanted to go to Oak Island. And he goes, well, if you had some ideas, what would it be? I'm like, well, in Canada, I've worked with the police off and on in different cases. I said maybe a missing and murdered Indigenous person show would be a good show for me. And he goes, well, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And he says, is there, so he says, I'll call this network. It's an Indigenous network within Canada. and see if they're interested. So he called them and they said, well, there's a lot of legal things around naming people, pointing fingers at people on TV. So it's probably not a significantly great idea. Even though we love that you help out in that way sometimes with different people, it would be very difficult for TV. So they said we're interested, but see what else he can do. So he calls me back and I said, well, I do these live events and I read people in an audience and pretty much, around, I mean, that's where Donna Gabriel saw me. And she goes, well, how about if we went to different Indigenous communities and you read people within the community and then you got to meet elders and learn about wisdom and such like this. Now prior to that, because I was not raised on an Indigenous reservation or within a community itself. My grandma was full Mi'kmaq, and she never lived up to 13. She lived in a community that was all Indigenous people, but she married a Caucasian fellow and a fisherman in Newfoundland. And then had 16 children and lived in a little community. I know,
Wow.
big family, eh? My mom was the
Yes.
oldest. I'm the oldest grandchild. And so my family lost that connection because even when my grandma was born in 13, I mean, Newfoundland, a province, like it would be equivalent to a state in the US, wasn't even part of Canada then, for God's sakes.
Oh, wow.
It was part of the British colonies and such like that. And it became a province in 1948 when my mom was born. And so the indigenous communities weren't even established until 1980s, I think, or 1987 in Newfoundland. So there was this lost cultural connection. And unfortunately, because of colonization too within Canada, and I know probably it's affected the US greatly as well, that, our culture and who we are as people was kiboshed a lot and our spiritual practices and our ceremonies and things. So it was almost like a stigma. And, they even had residential schools in Canada where, children weren't even allowed to speak their language or practice their culture in any way. It was really kind of like frowned upon. And even many children died as a result of it here in Canada, which is kind of a dark part of our history.
Yeah, it's really tragic with what has happened, particularly in Canada with the schools and things.
Yeah,
It's
it's unfortunate.
heartbreaking.
And it's a mix between church and you could solve down in the US, you could say state, but it's government and church kind of collaborated together to kind of do this, and it was just bad. But
Mhm.
anyway, that's in the past. And a lot of Indigenous people are still healing from that. So with the different Indigenous communities across Canada, we shot a pilot. And the funny thing is that this is where synchronicity all ties in. The first community we went to this community called Listowitch, which is Mi'kmaq for a place up near Quebec and New Brunswick border. And we shot a pilot episode of Spirit Talker. We didn't even know it was going to be called Spirit Talker at that point. We're just filming the pilot episode. So I'm doing my session in front of like maybe 120 people in the community, live filming of me doing readings. And then the producers then say, okay, we really like these top 3 readings. We'd like to bring them back for a one-on-one session with you. And then you do further readings with them, and then maybe do something with an elder within the community, and we'll send that off to APTN and see if they like it. So we did that, and they loved it, and they wanted the show. So we started filming 13 episodes very shortly. But speaking of the wisdom of the elders oracle cards, there was a lady I read in the audience in Lister's, Quebec named Tracy Metallic. And in the show, I connected to her uncle and some other people with her and her aunt that were there. And so, anyway, during the one-on-one session I did with her in the filming of the pilot, I I tuned into the fact that she was an artist. And I said, okay, listen, they're telling me that you're an incredible artist in so many ways. And they're saying that so after the reading, she shows me some of her art. And I said, Tracy, I love your stuff. I love it. She said, and I told her then, I said, listen, Tracy, I got a weird inkling that one day I'm going to get to do an Oracle card deck. I don't know when or how that's going to happen, but when it does, would you ever be interested in doing the art for it? And she said, I would absolutely love to. Just give me a call when and if that ever happens. So when I signed the contract with Hayos for Spirit Talker, they said, hey, Shawn, have you ever thought about doing an Oracle card deck too? I'm like, that is so funny that you mentioned that. And this is
Wow.
like years later, right? So I planted the seed, I put it out there. I never searched out Hay House. I mean, I never like sent in a submission for my book to Hayhouse. I just was out there doing what I'm doing. I never, you know, called somebody to say, "Hey, can I have a TV show?" It was like I just called to see if I could go somewhere and just vibe a place out for fun.
Mm.
Next, you know, I'm like doing a TV show. And later, many years later, then you know, when Hayhouse found out about me and via John Holland and that synchronistic passing by the door type of thing, that it led to them checking me out and having a conversation, and then you know signing a book deal, and the book, like I think the one you held up has a sticker on it because in
Mhm.
Canada it became a national bestseller for a week, mind you, but still it hit the bestsellers list in Canada, which is amazing.
That's
And
amazing.
so, which goes to show that there's people out in the world that are searching for spirituality and understanding to spirit connection, communication, etc. It's not woo anymore. You
Mm.
know, I mean, maybe for some people it is. And like I said, not everybody is on the same level. Not everybody is in alignment with us. But that doesn't mean they won't catch up at some point. And it may take them many lifetimes, but I feel like there's a lot of people out in the world that there's something inside us all that's kind of like nudging us to kind of learn more about who we are, not just in the physical form, but who we are as a spirit and
Mm.
that connection that we all have. It's not just for Indigenous people. It's not just for witches and Wiccans and people as such, or people who are into black magic or what have you. It's, you know, it's for all of us, and you know, that's why religions were formed. And
Right.
you know, there was like almost like, you know, back, you know, thousands of years ago, right? And they still around and they still have buildings, you know. I'm not looking to start a church, mind you.
Well,
Not looking to do that at all.
right, right. I know you have a little bit of experience with that, actually,
I do. Yes.
according to
Funny
your
you
book.
should mention that. I
Right.
thought about it for a minute.
Well, it's really fascinating how you took that at the end, because I just popped on here on the screen because I was going to say you are this bridge, like you're a bridge to the Indigenous traditions from those of us who are outside of those traditions, and you're a bridge between the ancient teachings and the modern teachings. So, you talking about the the new, we're kind of entering this new age where so many people are awakening and they're interested in spirit teachings, and that is kind of this maybe more of a new agey type of thing. And I don't necessarily mean new age in terms of like a genre, but like new, it's a new way of interacting with spirituality apart from religion and dogma. But when we have these indigenous teachings, of course, they're ancient and they have this strong lineage with them. So it's this really interesting dance that you in particular are suited towards. And, for just speaking for myself, like not as an indigenous person, but like I remember being in social studies class in fourth grade and learning about Native Americans. And I'm reading a textbook and I cannot get enough. And that was not like me, especially with social studies. I was not really interested in social studies. But when I came across Native Americans and how they lived and how they lived with the land and they were connected with spirit and they lived in harmony and they paid attention to the seasons and all these things. And I was like spellbound. Like, I
Mm.
want to live like that. Why don't we live like that now? Can we live like that again?
Yeah.
And so I've always been very drawn to Native American traditions and wisdom teachings. And so I paid a lot of attention when you came into my field of awareness. It was like, oh, I want to hear what he has to say.
Well, that's great.
So, but it's also this like, you're very much on the forefront of this movement of how humanity is coming into a new level of awakening, but it's through these ancient teachings. So it's really fascinating, the old and the new, and you know, the bridge in many,
Yeah.
you're a bridge in many ways.
Well, I feel, you know, Indigenous people, before we started to lose our ceremonies and our culture of who we are, and we're starting to remember that, you know, we're starting to remember our ceremonies. And a lot of the times from the elders that I've met from different communities that I've gone to, for, during colonization, There were still elders that practiced certain ceremonies, but they had to be hidden in the backwoods and, with like specific people that you knew that you weren't going to tell anyone because, you could literally be injured or hurt and maybe even killed if people thought that you were practicing your culture, which is just, it's just our way of like connecting to the spirit world, right? It's, connecting to our ancestors, connecting to the creator. I mean, it's the same thing that a lot of people are doing in religion,
Mhm.
right? And they have their ceremonies, right? And we have our ceremonies, and our ceremonies are more deeply and richly connected to Mother Earth, and the sacred directions, of Mother Earth and Grandfather Sun and Grandmother Moon. And, it's because we've learned to live our lives according to the cycles of life and the cycles of Mother Earth herself and the ebbs and flow of the tides and everything that comes within the world. It's deeply connected to who we are and our livelihood. We've had to kind of like pay attention and kind of mark our celebrations and our ceremonies based upon those things. But even pre-contact, our people, the Mi'kmaq people, very deeply connected and psychic.
Mm.
And hence why we'd have to hide some of these ceremonies. One of the practices that we did as Indigenous people is we would have medicine people, and it could be men or women or a two-spirited person, which would be a person that kind of balances between those worlds, that, oftentimes when this medicine person would connect, there would be a ceremony like a sweat, which, would have 4 rounds, like the 4 directions, the 4 seasons. We would base our ceremonies based on a lot of these kind of principles. And we'd always start with in the east, where the sun rises, where the creator's light first hits, Mother Earth and etc. But one of the ceremonies we would do involved a game. And actually, we had a game in Canada, and I wrote about it in my book. It's called Waltus. And it's a fun game. I have it up here on my shelf, actually. It's a wooden maple bowl, and we have like 5 dice in it that aren't really dice. They're like made of bones or antlers. And they have a symbol on one side and they're a little concave on the other side. So when we played the game, we usually say it's you and someone else that you play it with. It's a two-person game, and it could go on for days and days and days because and there's people that are really competitive and good at it too. I don't know how, but they seem to be good at it because it seems to be so random, but yet not so random because
Yeah, I think I've heard,
I
yes, I
can't
think
seem
I've
to
heard you
win.
say you don't win. Yeah.
I can't win. So we have this bowl, we bounce it up, and all these pieces are flying through the air. And they either come all the way up or all the way down, or all the way up but one, or all the way down but one. And then you get points, and there's different sticks that you get given, and it's like a fun game. It's a fun game. And so anyway, but we used it for something else as well. And this is pre-contact from Western culture civilization, where you would think people staring into like crystal balls and Wiccan or anything like this. Is Indigenous people had our own ceremonies. There's something within us all, no matter where you're from, Indigenous from Turtle Island of North America or from Europe, and Wiccan and deeply connected to those like they call them pagan beliefs, pre-Christian, I guess. That doesn't make them evil, doesn't make them bad. It's just our different ways of connecting to the spirit world. It's just different ways of connecting to, the creator, right? So one of the ceremonies, we would fill the bowl full of water and we'd leave it out in the moonlight for 4 days or 4 nights, actually, where the moonlight would come out and shine light upon the water. And it was just a way that we practiced ceremony. There might have been a sacred fire that also we would have lit for 4 days. And then we could have gone into sweats, and we could have like fasted for those 4 days as well. There's so many different ceremonies that we would do as Indigenous people. And then after the ceremony, whoever could see, or who was the seer for the community, and often the seer would then hold the bowl for very direct and intentional reasons, like what should we do about this situation? We need insight. What should we do? What This person is not well. We need to figure out what medicines we need to go harvest in the forest to bring this person to help them be well. There's somebody who's struggling mentally, emotionally. What message can come through their ancestors that may guide them to help them find a better space in life. So the person would then hold the bowl after those 4 days of ceremony, and they would just gaze into the water. And just as they would sit there and gaze into the water, they wouldn't stare into the water, just gaze upon the water. And they would be kind of mindfully meditating just as they kind of gazed upon the water and with through invitation, inviting their ancestors, the ancestors of the people that needed the help, to come to communicate to them. And then they would have a vision about the plant they needed to pick, or how to best deal with the situation, or how to give the advice to help people through the difficult situation they were facing, or maybe the message from the loved one that they were struggling so deeply with the grief that they were carrying, to help them move through it in a better way. So it would be about healing and wellness and love, kindness and love and compassion. So they would have these visions. And to give you an example, what those visions will look like. And I do this intentionally when I talk because, just as I explain the story to you, and you may have never seen a sweat or a sacred fire, or even a shaman or somebody who would sit in front of a fire or even put water out in the moonlight for 4 nights. But I'm betting you, everybody that's here listening or watching this interview, this podcast, visualize what I said to you. You somehow imagined what I said. So your mind has an ability to see without its eyes. I didn't shove that in your brain and make you see it. You saw it. You maybe saw glimpses, and maybe just fleeting, but you had impressions that came through your mind. It's very much like when spirit communicates to us. That's what you would call, and this is where a Western word becomes married with something we already know, clairvoyance.
Mm.
Right? We didn't have the word clairvoyance. We didn't, if you said clairvoyance, we wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about. But we knew what it was like to see,
Yeah.
and not with these eyes, but we knew what was to see and hear and hear. And that's where we would listen. We would, and it comes from a good space, a loving space, a kind space, a compassionate space, because this wouldn't be, you're going into the ceremony to do harm to anyone. You're helping people, you're helping your community. This is what you would do this for. You would be doing it for guidance for yourself in some way. And it's within us all. Whether you practice a special ceremony for it or not, it is there. And the more that you work at it, refine it, and trust and, kind of understand, because it is a language of sorts. And sometimes it's very, symbolic, sometimes it's very literal, and sometimes it's both. But it's then using your intuition, your inner knowledge, your inner knowing, and feeling, what does this mean? What is this message? Where is this guiding me? I see this, but what does this mean to me? What do I feel like this message is coming through because of this? When you start to ask yourself, then you can kind of sense it out, feel it out, right? So that's clairsentience. Right? So there's other words that are Western culture that have always been around in that kind of beliefs and ceremonies that they practice. Now, mind you, we're on different continents, right? So I'm not saying the indigenous way is the right way. What I'm saying is the indigenous people had ways, and that we were connected to spirit as other people were in their own continent. So without having contact, let's say 1,000 years ago, we still, there was something in my people, something in Caucasian people, Egyptian people, African people. There's something within all people, that there was a transcendence of communication from the spirit world to us all through different ceremonies.
Mm.
And I think some of that got stigmatized, let's say, much of it, because of colonization and religion. Because then, and I understand that, when the belief system that many people had shared back in the day with colonization, that there was one way to the creator. And, all these other ways had no power. It was evil or a demigod or something negative, right? Which is the farthest thing from the truth. But and the strongest belief for the and what they say is history is written by the winners, right? And so history was written by the strongest group of people for the longest time. But we're remembering who we are, and it's not okay to hurt people because of your belief. You freely can believe whatever you choose to believe. I'm hoping that if you're going to believe something about the creator and spirit, that it's coming from a really good space and place.
Right.
Anything negative is not going to serve you. It's not going to serve humanity. It's not going to serve anybody. So you have to come from a good space, because that's who you are. First and foremost, each of us all come from an unconditional loving source and space. And if
Right.
that's your source, That's what we all have to kind of strive to connect to and be in alignment with. Anything less than that is in alignment with like a higher level energy. It's more of an egotistical based energy of like, I'm right, you're wrong. And so we have to kind of like transcend that. And through my teachings and stories and such, like I've come to understand different concepts, and through culture and connection to different elders and even through different ceremonies I've been so grateful to be part of, that it's taught me so much more and to help me go deeper even, and bridging these worlds, bridging the connections, bridging, the understanding between my culture and Western culture. And we even actually have a word in Mi'kmaq that is called Edamuktwak, which means two-eyed seeing. And now is the time, and it's Albert and Merdina Marshall who came up with the principle from Eskasoni, Nova Scotia, who are Mi'kmaq elders, and it's about bridging Western culture and Indigenous culture together.
Mm.
And there's a time, because we can look and be, Indigenous people, and there's many, trust me, I've met a lot that are angry with Western culture and Western people and etc. But anger is not going to solve problems. We have to kind of see together somehow, because we are one world, we're one nation. There's four directions of the world itself, and there's different colors of people from around the world, and we have to come together as one nation, as the human nation. And that's an Indigenous teaching. So, if you're going to be Indigenous and angry about, and I can understand learning from the concepts of what happened through colonization, but if you carry anger in your spirit, then that's what you have inside you. And that could be anger about, there's so many different people. I mean, the Black people of the world are also angry about, how they've been treated and what's happened to them. And, they're entitled to have feelings about that. But you can't sit and stay in anger. There's no resolution. So, the medicine that you carry is the medicine that you have inside you. The medicine that you have inside you is what you give to the world. It's what you have. So I've been trying to help people understand how to shift away from that into like a healing process. So when even spirit connects to me from the other side, many times when I connect or have spirit communicate to me for someone, um, and it could be in a live audience, because that's usually how I do my sessions, in a live audience. And I love that, because when I do that in a live audience setting, everybody's witnessing the same thing.
Mm.
And even though, maybe 13 people in the audience out of like hundreds of people are getting the sessions, 13 to 15 people, there's a message that I told this person that's going to resonate with that person. And spirit is intelligent enough to know that if these messages come through for these specific people, it's going to reach everyone. So I trust that process.
Mm.
And I think, people, that's what I try to teach people when I do events like this, is to see and I know that a lot of people are coming to me too, to make a connection as a spirit talker, as a psychic medium, because in my culture I'm called a spirit talker, and my Indigenous name is White Eagle Spirit Talker, which has been given to me by elders, or an elder within my own community, through ceremony. But when they come to me, I can't read everyone. I'm human.
Mhm.
I can only do so much within my lifetime. And trust me, I have people every day that'll message me, say, Shawn, I need your help. Can you do a reading for me? And I cannot read everybody.
Mhm.
But I teach too. I teach people how to make connections. I teach people and I have a course called Spirit Talker Tribe that launches every year on September 7th to 30th, where I teach people how to be connected for themselves. So you don't feel like you need me,
Well,
that
that's
you
what
learn
I
this for you.
Right. And that's what I love about your book. I was going to mention that as well, that it's very practical. So you've got these beautiful, mystical, mysterious stories of connecting with spirit, and it talks about how you came to be a spirit medium because you were a postmaster at first.
I was for a little while, yeah.
Right. Um, but there are very practical ways that you have at the end of many of the chapters of how people can do this for themselves, how they can connect deeper with their spirit, and how they can work with their own intuition, develop their own intuition. The clairs that you mentioned, how we can work with those and figure out which one is more prominent for us and deepen the others. And so it's very practical. You also have some amazing stories in here about connecting with people's spirits and your own spirit guides.
Yeah.
Now, what is that like for you when you're connecting with your guides? Because it's the same, I know you've had one guide that you've had the whole time that you saw physically
Sam, yeah.
when you were little, Sam. But I would just love to know more about what that's like for you.
Well, it's sporadic. It's not, I think everybody has an expectation, I believe, thinking that your guides are going to be just chatting you up all the time. Uh, that's not the truth. They may chat you, guide you in subtle ways. You might not even realize it because like sometimes I'm like doing something and I'm not thinking about anything. All of a sudden I feel like, oh, I'm supposed to call so and so. Like, where does that voice come from? I don't have like a little guy in the background going, hey, excuse me, Shawn, you forgot to call Joe today. And you better call Joe. Because but all of a sudden, occasionally I recognize that there's people that will nudge me to call the film guy, right? You should call Ed and ask him if you can go out to Oak Island. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to call Ed today. So you don't even realize it's going on, like, because it's just like almost like it's like you think it's your own thoughts many times that you think that they're their own thoughts. Sometimes they're very deliberate because I'll be teaching and then I'll hear somebody in my head go, Shawn, you need to tell this story. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to tell the story. Now, even people that I connected, because I was like teaching the other night in my course with my students, and my grandma, I was talking about my grandma because we're this month we're talking about making connections to our loved ones.
Mm.
So I was like telling people, how different ways that you can communicate, different ways that you can make a connection to somebody you care about. And predominantly it's just like talking to your people, right? You got to talk about them, tell stories about them. And so anyway, I'm telling a story about my grandma. And then I hear her in my head for a second. Shawn, tell him the story. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll tell you that. She wants me to tell you this story. So I'm like, okay, and this is like, this is my grandmom's favorite. So I have to tell you this one. So even though I thought it was going one way, I was going in a different direction all of a sudden because spirit had guided me to go that way. And that it's like the little mind thoughts that come into her head that where I notice that my personal guides are guiding me through life. But sometimes my loved ones, if I'm especially talking about them, but they hear us. They're aware of what we're talking about, what we're teaching about, and they're trying to help us to teach or talk or communicate as best as we can. And so I notice that now. Other times, I'll actually hear my guide talk to me. Like this is the cool part is sometimes, not super often, but every now and then, I can hear like a voice that will speak to me out loud. And if I had a recorder going, I could record it talking to me.
Wow.
So I could actually record somebody like calling my name and saying something to me. It'd be very short, but I've recorded it many, many times throughout my life, where I've recorded. And if you go to my YouTube channel, there's a 11-minute clip that I have on there where I used to go out paranormal hunting back the day, and I used to record different spirits that would say things to me. But you'll hear my guide Victoria on there, and there's another one where I went out to connect to another man on um, an island here in Nova Scotia. That was he was hanging around. His name was Howard Carter. You'll hear him telling me his name is Howard Carter, and then you'll hear my guide talking to him for God's sakes.
Wow.
And it was the most coolest thing. And this is like, I'm not even talking to him. She's talking to him.
Wow.
And I had recorded a brief conversation between a spirit that was still hanging around the earth world for whatever reason, and my guide guiding him to the light. And she said something to him. She says, and you can almost hear like when they speak, sometimes it's very breathy, they have this like this breathy voice. And she's saying, the light way, the light is. So she's saying the light is like the way to go for him. The light way. She's saying the light is the way. The light is, and she really emphasizes the is. Like she's trying to get through to this man who has somehow lost his way and wants to hang around the earth world. He's not a terrible person. He's just a person for whatever reason has been lingering around out on McNabb's Island. and she was guiding him to find his way home. I was trying to help him, but she was helping me help him.
Wow.
And but recording her voice and having that clip like on my YouTube channel is so cool because you get to hear a spirit.
Mm.
This is not my words. It's not me speaking for spirit. This is actually spirit speaking. So sometimes I'll record things like that. And I at other times like I've had that there's a couple stories. There's one story I didn't share in the book, actually. Because I have a bunch of stories that I didn't share, of course. And there was one where my the guy Ed Pyle from the production company, he was thinking about me doing another TV show, a different one, potentially about looking into unsolved things, right? And one of the ones that he wanted me to talk about predominantly, or he wanted to do a pilot about it. It was about this guy in Nova Scotia who was a Bitcoin guy that mysteriously died in India.
Hmm.
Now, mind you, they were investigating him for criminal activity because he scammed a bunch of people out of millions and millions of dollars through Bitcoin stuff. And then him and his wife were setting up some type of, and this could be a story, setting up an orphanage of all things in East India. And while he was there, he was supposedly he had some type of underlying health condition like Crohn's. Apparently, he died of eating something and got really bad Crohn's attack and died in India. And they brought him home, and nobody ever saw the body
Hmm.
except his wife, which I'm pretty skeptical about. Anyway, so he wanted me to do a whole show on this. So I sat with some people and and I recorded the conversation because when I'm sitting with spirit sometimes, and I have other people come sit with me and other students and other people who also doing what I do, I may sit around and you may even call it like a modern day seance, but it's just sitting around and I might light some smudge and invite the spirits to connect. But I wanted to see if this man was really deceased. So I invited him to come and I recorded the conversation. And so anyway, I never recorded him. So he didn't come to me. I never heard him. So my suspicion is that he might be kicking around out in the world somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And he faked his own death because
Mhm.
he's like and they actually I think it might even be on Netflix. There might be his name was Gerald Cotton. But
Mhm.
I think they did a documentary on Netflix potentially about his disappearance and stuff like that. So he wanted me the thing that Ed wanted me to do with the show was find Gerald Cotton.
Wow.
But I mean, that sounds really cool and all. And but it doesn't it's not my passion really. It's not something I'd rather help people heal than finding some guy that's like, screwing people out of money somehow.
Right. Yeah.
I'd rather help people heal, but I did try to see if I could make a connection.
Yeah. And he
Now,
didn't
while I was
show
there
up.
with everybody around,
Hmm.
now I at the same time, I recorded my guides because I recorded them during the session.
During that same like seance when
Yes, it
Gerald
was
didn't
like we're
show
all
up.
sitting around. I have five other people with me, and
Oh,
I'm sitting there
wow.
talking. And in the background, I recorded my spiritual guides. I heard, but because now, mind you, it's really cool because I didn't again write about this in the book, but I had a dream where I met a new guide. And like I met her. She was kind of a heavier set lady, dark hair, seemed very smart, very intelligent, very kind. She actually brought my cat Stormy, who passed away a long time ago. And
Oh,
I got to spend some time with my cat. I was like, oh my God. I mean, and I asked her who she was. I said, is she one of my guides? And she kind of just smiled and nodded. And I'm like, okay, apparently I have a new guide, but she won't tell me who she is. And so during the session, I'm recording and I hear Sam talking and I hear Victoria, my other guide, talking. They're talking to someone else and they're both calling her the same name. And her name's Eliza.
wow.
One called her Eliza and one called her Eliza. And I have a recording of them speaking to her about what we were doing.
Wow.
And so they were consulting with her about our little session of connecting with Gerald Cotton. So when I listen back to hear if I recorded anything, because sometimes I may not hear it, I catch it later. So I went back to listen. I was like, well, there's Victoria, there's Sam, who's this Eliza girl? I'm like, and then I heard in my head, I'm that guy you met in your dream. I'm like,
Wow.
apparently I have a new guy named Eliza that I've just discovered. I mean, I'm sure she's been here, but I haven't needed to know who she was up to a certain point of life. And I do feel like with guides particularly, that depending on what stage of life you're at, because in Indigenous culture, we feel like we have four stages of life. We have infancy, we have youth, we have adult, and we have elder stages of life. And it's attributed to the medicine wheel. And I feel at different stages of life, depending where you are, what you're going through, what you're learning, because we're all on different journeys, right? When I was young, I was lots of, psychic spiritual things happened to me, but I wasn't practicing as a psychic medium, in my 20s, I was. And I became more connected around that time because I started to really delve into my spiritual connection at that point. And I really worked at it. And because it's a practice, you have to keep working on it. And you are an instrument.
Mhm.
You are literally an instrument. If you tune your instrument and continue to practice playing that instrument, which is, the same as like working with the spirit world communication and stuff like that, you become a better player. You become a person who's more versed at playing the guitar. You're the guitar.
I
And
love that metaphor.
you just become better at it. And you know what I love is like, have you ever heard, um, and this is something that Dr. Wayne Dyer said back in the day. And I love this quote. And he always says, don't die with your music still inside you.
Mm.
And that my music is my work. It's my connection. And there's something in each and every one of us that is wanting to express itself through you. And if you practice it, you engage in it and you do it from a good loving space and you keep it, it becomes a big part of who you are, then you become greater at it. It becomes greater. So I like to say that he gave me kind of the wisdom, in the sense of connecting those two things together, that, tuning my instrument, which means through my ceremonies, my personal ceremonies, my meditation, the prayers, the smudging that I do, the connection and invitation of the spirit to work, that helps tune my guitar. But when I do sessions for people, that's when I'm playing my music.
Hmm. That's so beautiful. Well, and I love that story about your spirit guides, and it makes me think of another really powerful story from your book with your spirit guides where they were protecting you and they showed up in
They did.
physical form. This story is so powerful. And I think too, the story you just shared, because of the physicalization of the voices, like it really adds a different element than just kind of taking with when it comes to spirit, we so often just kind of have to trust ourselves, which is
Right.
so powerful. But when we can get these physicalizations, it really helps to anchor something in for us as physical beings. So I would love to if you would share that story.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and I would, tell everybody out in the world, if you want to make a connection to your guide, invite them. Maybe light some, smudge smoke or whatever sacred, smudging medicine, which is a smoke, and invite them and say a little prayer into your smoke as you invite them to be part of your life. Help them say, I invite you to help me know who you are. I invite you to, help me. I give you permission to allow you to let me know who you are.
Mm.
And they may visit you in a dream. You may have this voice that all of a sudden calls your name or something, and you're like, don't be scared, for God's sakes. These are just people that love you and are watching out for you and guiding you. And you'll notice how they're kind of like chiming in from time to time. And you may even record them. If you're doing a session or something like that where you're sitting around at home, take out your phone and put on the digital recorder and just do your little ceremony and talk to your guides. If you listen, you might actually hear them in the background. It's
Mm.
it's not that far out there. And once you do, it's going to change your life. You're like, oh my God, there's really people here that aren't here. And
Right.
they are talking to me. They are saying something to me. And you may understand what they're saying. It may take time to understand, who knows? But they're not just for me. They're there for everyone. Now, back in the day, I was going through kind of a difficult time. I was getting divorced, and I was having some trouble with one person particularly, not my ex-wife or anything like that, but someone else. And I just talked to my guides and I said, listen, I really need some help. Please, keep this person away from me. And it would really help me out if you could keep this person away from me, because it's just going to cause drama and problems. And I'd rather not that. So I put it out into the spirit world and I said, do whatever you got to do. And again, I was like, at this time, I was still working as a mailman, as a mail carrier, right? I would deliver mail by day and at night I deliver spirit messages. So I would, which is kind of funny. Paper messages by day, spirit messages by night. It was like a mail psychic superhero of sorts. But I was out delivering my mail in Halifax, and there's one road that's called Blower Street, and it's a hill, pretty steep. A lot of hills in Halifax because you have the ocean, the Halifax and Bedford Basin, and then it just kind of goes up, right? So I'm going up Blower Street and delivering the mail. I'm there fairly early because I was a really quick mailman, and there was one place that was open on that street, and it was like this little. It was like a magazine shop, coffee and magazines. And and they made a few Danishes and stuff like this, and there was nobody in there. So I went up to deliver the mail, and there's some of the story that never made it to the book, just so you know. And because the editor edited some of it out, and this is a really cool part that you're going to learn today. But before I went into the the coffee or the to deliver the mail, there was a man outside on the street sitting there. And I tried to walk by him and he grabbed me by my hand and he said, "Excuse me, sir, can I just talk to you for a few minutes?" I'm like, okay. And he seemed like he was a homeless person. And anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm chatting with him and he's talking gibberish, literally talking gibberish. It makes no sense to me. And then I try to leave and he goes, "Well, so and so at your workplace." And I'm like, "Well, I do know that person." Like, "How do you know this person?" "Well, I knew him from a long time ago, and I was like, just so strange. How did you know that guy? And he wouldn't answer my question. And then eventually I just said, man, I'm so sorry, but I have to keep going. I have to keep, I have to finish my mail delivery. I want to get home, but really nice talking to you. I go and deliver the mail and I'm going up the hill and I'm going to go around the corner because there's a sharp corner. And just as I go around the corner, this tall fellow and this kind of shorter lady with dark hair comes around the corner and he walks right up to me. And I can't go around the corner because they're both in front of me on the sidewalk. And he goes, "Excuse me, sir, I got a strange question for you, but I'm not from around here, but we're looking for a good place to go for breakfast." I'm like, "Breakfast? That is so what a weird question that was." I'm like, "Of course I would know the answer to this because that's like my favorite meal of the day. I know all the breakfast spots." I'm like, "Okay, well, there's so and so down the road," but I didn't get to say this. This is where it gets really kind of weird because I'm thinking of there's a restaurant in Halifax called the Blue Nose 2. And you could go there for like a little kind of home cooked breakfast type of thing, like little diner, and it's pretty good. So I said, "Well, there's the Blue Nose too," and he goes, "Well, I know there's Blue Nose too is just down the road." Like, oh, that's weird. So I'm thinking, okay, well, there's Smitty's up on Spring Garden there, and then he goes, "Well, I know there's also Smitty's up on Spring Garden." I'm like, "I thought you said you weren't from around here."
Right.
He goes, "I know where I'm going." I'm like, "You do?" Because yeah, because very nice talking to you. And he walked by me. As he walked by me, the person that I asked for help from was literally coming around the corner and going up the hill. And I saw them. I just saw them turn and go that way. And they were with someone else. They didn't see me. And I froze. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's that person." So I turn around immediately. Now, those people that I was talking to, because I'm thinking this, and he even said his name was Sam, for God's sakes. And I'm like, it was so strange because I'm like, there's no way this could have been my guide. And I turn around because they literally just walked by me. One went one way, one went the other way. And the other person was going up the hill. If there was like a fraction of a second difference, I would have bumped right into them. So I stop, I freeze, I turn around, I'm going the other way, but there's nobody there. And I know none of the businesses are open because I'm delivering the mail and you can't get into any places except the coffee shop and the paper place. So I go down there, go around the corner, I wait a few minutes, and then I go into the coffee shop and I'm like hanging out there, like waiting for like 5 minutes. And I start talking to the guy. I said, "Listen," and I start thinking about the homeless person sitting out front. I said, "Where did that guy go?" I said, "That's where it all started getting weird." Right.
Right.
I said, I was here earlier. I delivered the mail, and there was like a homeless man that I was talking to outside. He goes, I've been here all morning, man. There's been nobody outside. I know. There was somebody there. I was talking to him. He kept grabbing my hand. He goes, listen, man, I saw you out there talking too. I thought it was pretty weird because you were talking to yourself.
Really?
He said, I never saw anybody. You were just sitting there waving your hands talking, and I thought you were a little weird.
What?
And then I said, and you didn't see any other people come down? They didn't come in here or anything like that? He's like, there's been nobody here but you.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God. That was Sam. That was my guide, Sam, like from when I was a kid. That was Victoria. That's why she wouldn't look me in the eyes. Every time I look at her, she'd look away. Like I was like, maybe she knew if I looked in her eyes, I would like remember her.
Wow.
But they were solid people. Like it wasn't like they were like wispy, ghostly people that I was talking to. These were like solid people. Like the homeless person was a solid person. And the
Wow.
guy working at the counter, the only guy there, staring at me, talking to this man that doesn't exist,
Right.
right? Everything got weird. It was just like so cool.
That
And
is
I just,
amazing.
it was amazing. It was just amazing. And I was like, I'm sure these are my guides. Like I'm like 99.99%. There's this point one part of my brain's going logically going, maybe they just went somewhere else.
Yeah, maybe they sprinted off and they broke a record for.
Exactly. I don't know what they did, but they just vanished. Literally, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah,
From being here, turning around, and there's only downhill to that coffee shop, and all the other places are locked and closed because I can't deliver the mail,
right.
and there's nobody there. There's just nobody.
Yeah,
And I was just like, oh my God, that was my guides. I was so excited. I was like, I know they
incredible.
was just my guides were here. And I did ask them for help and they did come and help me. I never ever thought it would work out like this, but
What a
it was
huge
surreal.
blessing. Oh my
Surreal.
gosh. So, listeners, this book, Spirit Talker, it's full of stories like, I mean, they're not all physical like that, but just like expansive stories. And these are the things that help us to be able to expand our consciousness so that we can tap into more of the non-physical reality, the truth beyond the material world. And that is so important, for, well, at least in my world. That's such an important part of my life and what I came here to experience, and much more than just the physical experience. So I highly recommend getting Spirit Talker, and the Oracle cards are just gorgeous. And I've experienced a lot of synchronicities too, using the Oracle cards too. Surprising things like Sweetgrass has come up a lot very strongly for me, which was surprising for me. I'm like,
Mhm.
that would not be the card that I would be like, oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm like, this
Right,
card's showing up all the time.
right.
So,
Well, that means that your ancestors are really want you to know that they're around you supporting you.
oh, I love that.
Your ancestors, the people that love you, that carry your family from this life and other lifetimes, are deeply connected to you and helping you walk on your journey. And they're guiding you probably a lot more than you know.
Mm,
And that's the medicine. Because I mean, I have a little smudge bowl here, and I mean, my sweetgrass isn't as long right now because I use it. And predominantly, sweetgrass is a medicine. Like we call it medicine. It's a ceremonial medicine that we use the smoke with our words, our prayers, our thoughts, and even with sweetgrass, when it's braided, there's a ceremony to braiding it, to
right.
picking it. When you pick it, the ceremony begins. And then when it's picked, even when it's braided, there's two people that are putting their intentions into the sweetgrass while they braid it. One
Mm,
person's holding it, and the other person's braiding it. Now, the person that's braiding it is saying prayers. The other person holding it is praying that your prayers are answered. So there's always this kind of two or more. I mean, think about this in the Western culture philosophy. When two or more people are gathered together. Now,
right.
this is
There
like
I
a
am.
principle that we embodied without that understanding of Western culture and Christianity. But it's
Right.
something that it was already part of our spiritual practice. And then when people use it and they're putting their words, their prayers, that it's releasing the prayers that were intentionally put into when we braided it, and it's releasing your prayers too. So it's like it's even more than two.
Mm,
So it amplifies your ceremony, your words, etc. So And the connection to the braid is it's stronger because it's put together because it's braided, but also you're speaking to your ancestors. You're
I
speaking
love
to your loved
that.
ones, the ancestors from the many lifetimes that you've lived. And when you say your words, that your prayers, you're releasing that smoke, and that smoke is kind of going to dissipate into the ether, let's say, or the spirit world. But then it's like it's carrying the musical notes, because I think I probably put musical notes in relation to when you see smudge in the cards, right? I couldn't depict any other way, because again, your music that's inside of you is coming out, is your prayers, your words, your ceremony. So when you speak those words into your sweetgrass as it burns, and it goes up into the ether or the spirit world, it's like it's carrying it everywhere around you. It's carrying it to
Mm,
to the spirit world in every space that it surrounds you.
wow.
And but I really feel, because you're drawn to, I actually feel that you have lived an indigenous life before. Like I feel in a past life, you were deeply connected to indigenous people. I feel like that you, in your heart, your spirit, there's kind of this knowing that you have that you were these people once before. And that's why it resonated with you so strongly when you were reading these when you were young,
Mm,
because you were remembering who you were, that you had lived
yeah.
a life like this before. And I think that that's why these ceremonies speak to you as strong as they do. And I think the ancestors from that lifetime, the ancestors from this lifetime, are trying to get your attention through that card.
I love that. And I actually had a meditative experience where I started hearing a drum, and I was even like kind of swaying to it. And then I started seeing these feet, and they were like moccasins. They had fringe on the back, and they were stomping. And then as I like could see more, I saw this like adolescent male with long hair dancing and dancing. And I felt I mean, it was timeless, so I wasn't even surprised when I saw it. But then when I came out of meditation, I was like, what was that? That
Well,
was
he's one of your
amazing.
spiritual guides.
I
And he says you
yeah,
can call him Jonathan if you want.
really,
If
wow.
you choose, you can call him Jonathan. I think that would be a name easier other than the language that he said. But I think he would be called something like two little feet actually, or something like this.
Actually, I've gotten a TK with like a name. It's like a TK is, and that could be just a misunderstanding. But I'm like, it's
It could be connected to the language of like his name, but I
yeah,
would say that's why he's telling me you can just call him Jonathan if you want.
wow. And you said 2 feet, which is the
Yes,
first
he's
thing I saw.
right, because he's showing me two little feet or something like this. I think it's connected to his name in some way, and he was trying to give you an understanding of who he was, and he was showing you the dancing feet, and there may be a connection to his name through his culture that would say that.
Wow.
And he was trying to kind of inform you of who he was, and I think he is one of your spiritual guides.
Wow. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I've seen other times a different I mean, another dancing ceremony. I don't know if this resonates with you, but somebody wearing a headdress, and as they're looking forward, it's going like this, and it's almost like a yin yang almost symbol, but it's like almost hypnotizing. Like I'm seeing it in my
Oh,
mind's eye, but it's like somebody with their head down and they're going like this, and it's like really interesting to see it like what they might be invoking, but
right.
you're kind of seeing it from a different perspective. And I'm like, oh, I could see how spirits are drawn to these ceremonies. I mean, it's
They are.
attractive,
They
you
are. They
know?
are drawn. I mean, they're in the spirit world. They're
Yeah.
supporting you. Your ancestors will support you. I remember on Tancook Island when I was there, not Tancook, McNabb's Island when I was out there, and I was recording, like connecting to that same spirit that I connected to Howard Carter. At one point, I recorded a drum.
Oh, wow.
There were people drumming in ceremony. There were the community of indigenous people were there, and I recorded like a ceremony going on around us, and where they were helping me to help the person move on.
Wow.
So, and I got like almost like indigenous chanting and drumming in the background of the recording. And it's not that they're earthbound spirits. These are
Mhm.
spirits from a higher realm that are supporting me and helping me to help the people that maybe need a little nudge to move on.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a blessed life you have.
Well,
It's
we all
just
do.
remarkable.
We all do. That's the thing. I'm not like, and I'm not, I don't want anybody to think I'm special because I'm not. I'm as equally connected as everyone within the world. I just celebrate it and I practice it. I
Right.
practice my spirituality. I practice my culture and connection to spirit. And it's because I'm so deeply connected to it, it just becomes very natural for me. And I don't
Well,
question. I don't question like thinking, okay, this must be some strange people hidden in the woods, like drumming and chanting in it. There's nobody lives on this island, for God's sake. There's nobody here.
yeah.
It's really something going on. And I know Spirit's working with us all. And I think the more you become aware of that connection that you have, and that's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm writing the cards, because they're helping you understand, different principles and different philosophies and thinkings, and so that you can kind of like understand these for yourself and look at the spirit world different, look at your own life in a little bit different way. And then it becomes something natural for you too. And then you can, have that as a practice for yourself, your own ceremony, whatever that is. It's not just you have to do an indigenous ceremony. It's your ceremony that you make, that you do, where you connect and you interact. And you do it from a good and high level energy space. It's there for all of us.
Well,
And
that's what it's so valuable though that you are in this specific position where you're public facing and you've got all of these mysterious things coming through, but you're in a position to share it because again, that bridge, you're like this gateway to help people because the more we do experience the mystery that you're experiencing, it does help to open it up to
yeah.
so that we don't question when we experience
Right.
it. And it's this portal, which
Absolutely.
is so
You
powerful.
become the channel. You become a connected person yourself, and you can shift the people that are around you. And then we're doing this now through a live Zoom format type thing. But you know what? You could do this like just maybe talking to somebody at the grocery store for a second too, or a
Right.
friend that needs some advice, and just utilizing your intuition and trusting those abilities that are there. And if once you understand how they work and you invite and you're open to it, then it'll flow. And when you trust, and like I say, when spirit does start communicating to you, it may seem like somebody just turned the tap on for a second, and it's just like, okay, we got one drip here, but there's nothing else. But if you give up at that, that's all it will be. But if you keep trying, then next time it might be two or three drips that come through. And then next time you meet somebody, it might be going drip, 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 like the drum, that
Mm.
heartbeat of Mother Earth that just comes through. It just starts to flow, and you're like, oh, okay, I got this. And then you're in the zone, right? And then eventually kind of peters off, right? But it will come and go. There's ebbs and flow of tides within the world. It's not like meant to just flow constantly within your life. We still have to stay grounded and within the world because we're meant to be here. But again, there's moments in different people and situations you meet through life that you're meant to be in that zone. You're
Mm.
meant to be inspired or in spirit. And then let that drum beat flow through you. Your
Wow.
sacred drum within your heart, right? Because your heart is a drum beat, dum dum, dum dum, which is deeply connected to Mother Earth and the ebbs and tides of flow of the earth, and
Wow.
spirit itself. So
Mm.
don't negate your connection, and be open to it. Not with,
Right.
I mean, I think so many people have so many like limiting beliefs of thinking that I can't, or this is like for special people or whatever. You are the special person.
Mm.
You just have to see yourself as that person that is equal to everyone else, and don't put yourself above anyone ever, but at least on an equal playing ground, that we're all in the same space and place. We all showed up in this world to come here to kind of learn who we are eventually, and hopefully shift and change the world around us. And it
That's
may take
beautiful.
many lifetimes for many people, but maybe it only takes you a few to achieve this kind of what you would say potential enlightenment.
Mm.
And really enlightenment means just discovering the light within yourself
Right. That's so
and others.
beautiful.
Because if you can see it in yourself and see it in others, that's true enlightenment.
Mm. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Please tell people, I know you've got some live events coming up. How can people connect with your work, get your book, get your oracle cards, and see you live?
Right. If you go to my website, shawn-leonard.com, SHAWN hyphen, which is the middle line, and Leonard, LEONARD.com, you can go there and you can find all of my links to my social media, my website will have my events all listed coming up. I'm actually starting one here locally on the 23rd, and then I'm flying to Vancouver, Canada to do one there, and then out on Nanaimo on the Vancouver Island, and coming all the way east. And I think in August I will be in the Mega Center in New York. So if you're in around that area and want to check me out, please come see me there.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much. This has just filled my heart. I've loved every second. Thank you, Shawn. It's really been an honor to have you today.
Well, I appreciate you and thank you for having people like myself, and thank you for sharing your light and being willing to get out there and be the person that you are, and create a space so that we can all kind of work together, kind of to enlighten the world in a little bit, in a more greater way, let's say, because I think that's what we're all doing here. I mean, even though we don't know each other in firsthand ways, we're all kind of like helping each other out to shift the world in the way we think, the way that we connect, and the way that we're going to, and this will be out there forever, whether
Yes.
you write a book or you do a podcast. I mean, you're sharing, what you have inside you to kind of like shift and change the world. So if there's something, not just you, but everybody out in the world, there's something inside you that wants to express itself too. Do it with abundance, and do it with like so much love in your heart, because you're only here for a very limited time, and you will return the spirit. When you
Right.
return the spirit and you look back at your life, do you feel like you did everything you felt like you had to while you were here? Because that's why we have reincarnation. Because when we
Mhm.
look back and reflect, is where could have I done better? Where could have I done greater? But what could I've given more?
Mhm.
And I've showed up here to kind of give as much as I can for the time that I have. I'm 52 now. I'm hoping I'll be around for another 30 some years, but you never know, right?
Right.
But until that time, I'm going to give everything that I can between now and then.
Well, beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Soul Elevation. Please take a moment to think about someone in your life who might be uplifted or have their curiosity sparked by this content, and send it on to them. Let's keep sharing high frequency, empowering content to reinforce the highest potential for humanity. I also invite you to subscribe to this content. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you for the next episode of Soul Elevation.